Back guys to my YouTube channel, and today we're going to be looking at roofs, and I'm going to explore the different types of roofs in Archicad and how you can draft them out. So I'm just going to import a file here that is going to show us what you're going to be looking at today. So I'm going to come here, external content, place external drawing, and then I'm just going to bring out the image that contains my content for today. Yeah, so this is what I'm going to be looking at today. We're going to model these types of roof, but we're just going to model like seven of them, the most common type of roofs in building design. So I'm going to model the open gable. I'm going to model the heaped roof. I'm going to model the dash gable. I'm going to model this gambrel here. I'm going to model the shed, the butterfly, the pyramid, and maybe the skillion and lean-to roof. So those are the most common types. And this intersecting overhead heap, which is mostly a combination of both, maybe the gable and the heap, or maybe it can contain the heap only, which is in terms of the heap and valley here, or it can be a mixture of the two, achieving the intersecting overlaid heap. So I'm going to just do the common ones, which will give you enough knowledge to actually act on the other ones. So before we start drawing our roofs, I'm going to draw a simple house. It's going to be let me just draw a slab here that is, let me say 8 meters in terms of length, and let's go down to 6 meters in terms of width. So we enter, and you have a small house here. I'm just going to take my wall, and then I'm going to magic wand it there. So this gives us a small reference plane. So I'm going to start out by drawing out the first roof, which is going to be my open gable. So I'm going to go to my roof tool here. I'm going to change my selection to the second selection here. Go to the last one here, and I'm going to open this arrow and select the last option there. So that's selected. I can now just draw up my gable face like that, and then I'm just drawing it out like this. So with that drawn, you can see if I go to my 3D, this is what I have. Let me just orbit like this and zoom in, and I can just take my gable, select it, and maybe reduce the angle to maybe like 30 up here. So I'm going to just reduce it to 30 degrees and going to press OK, and it's going to reduce my angle like that. So I'm just going to make my walls a bit longer, like not linked. I'm going to make them a bit like 5 meters, and it's going to do something like this. So to achieve an open gable where this jump wall is present, I'm just going to select my roof and select the walls, and then I'm just going to trim out the walls like that, and you're going to achieve something like this. So that's our first roof. That's the gable roof. So you can go back to our ground floor, and I'm going to now delete this gable because I've already known how to do it. So the next one is going to be our heaped roof, which is another common type of roof, and it's just a matter of just taking my roof, and go to change the selection from this one to the first one, and I'm just going to draw out my gable like this. So I can either use it with independent notes, where I just go all through the plan, drawing out the notes like this and just doing it like that. Or I can use this one that highlights it the same, but it's just the same thing. So if I go to my 3D, you can see this is what we have. Let me just reduce its pitch a bit, maybe to something like 30 again. And then I can now trim it, select it and trim it with my shift, select the walls and then trim them together, and I have my heaped roof. So that's another common type of roof. It's in Archicad. Yeah, that's how you achieve a heaped roof. So the next roof is going to be the dash gable. I'm not going to delete my heaped roof yet because we're going to use it in the dash gable. Yeah, it's going to consist of my gable, and it's going to consist of this heap and a gable, the dash gable. So I'm just going to use it by going back to my roof here and now drawing a gable on top of my heaped roof to achieve the dash gable. So I'm just going to go back to my second selection here, and then I'm going to just draw out my heaped roof. Actually, let me just show you using a line tool where I want it to go. Let me somewhere there, and can just draw it out like this using my line tool to show where my gable is supposed to be. And I'm going to now take my roof and draw the gable now. So I'm going to come here up to that point there and now draw it out like this. So yeah, so we're going to have something like this. Let's go to the 3D. It's going to be something like this, something simple like this in the first try. So I'm going to come here and maybe change this to 30 and maybe let's say 40, because it's a bit, yeah, something like that. And then I'm going to go back to my ground floor and I'm just going to select my gable and I'm going to reduce it to fit only in the blue lines of my roof. I don't want it to have an overlap, so I'm just going to make it fit like that. So I'm going to remove the overlaps for my gable like that, and then I'm going to open an elevation to see what I'm actually dealing with. So let me just see viewpoint. Let me see elevation. Open it up like this, and then I'm just going to open up my elevation. Let me open current view settings. And then I'm just going to select my gable and I'm going to drag it up like this to achieve something like that. So with that done, I can go back to my 3D and you can see we have a Dutch gable. So I'm going to now select these two roofs, select the first one and then shift the next one. And then I'm going to trim them together like this. And then you're going to have something like this. So this is a Dutch gable. And that's another type of roof we have drawn. So the next one is going to be, we're going to do the one slope or the shed roof. And I'm going to delete this one. Let me select the roof, backspace it. Yeah, I'm just going to do the shed roof, which is just one slope of a roof. So I'm going to come to my ground floor, create this line. Then I'm just going to my roof tool. And I'm going to select the first option, which shows one roof leaf, which we're going to use for our shed. And I'm just going to draw out my shed like this and just look at where I want it to. Actually, let me show you. This side is where I want it to slope from. Let me show you like this. And then I'm just going to draw out my shed. Just make sure we have achieved what we want in the 3D. Let me look at it in the 3D. Yeah, so it's just a matter of drawing it out, and with that eye, you look at where you want the slope to come from. So I'm going to select my shed, and then I'm just going to delete, or actually make the angle to be a bit more gentle, maybe 30, like that. And let me just reduce my wall height to be back to 3 meters. And now open an elevation to just adjust open this elevation again. I think it's already open. And I'm just going to adjust the angle of how it's slanting by selecting the top node here. And then I'm going to select the first option, which allows me to manipulate how it's sloping up to somewhere there. And now I can just go back to my 3D, make my walls tall again, like 5 meters. And I can make sure it's 5. And then I can just trim my walls with my roof like that. So yeah, that's how you achieve a shed roof. It's just one roof that is slanting. So yeah, so the next roof is going to be our skillion and lean-to roof. So let me delete this one. Yeah, so we're just going to go back to our ground floor and I'm going to show you how the skillion and lean-to is going to come. I'm just going to make sure it's cutting half of my building like this. So one side will be like this and the other one like that. So I'm going to now use the shed roof to draw these two sheds. I'm going to come to my roof here and I'm going to draw the first shed, which is going to be here. Yeah, and it's going to look at the top of where it's sloping from. So I'm just going to now draw it out like this. And I have my first shed. And now the second shed, I'm just going to draw it using this other area here. And I'm just going to draw it the first point. And then I'm just going to look at where it's sloping to. not from now. I'm just looking from where it's sloping to, and then I can now draw it out like that. So it's just a matter of looking at where it's sloping at. So if it's sloping towards you, you look at the top of the slope. If it's sloping downwards, you look at the bottom of the slope. So can finish it like that. And if I go to my 3D, I think I have something like this. So let me just orbit it out. And I have something like this. So let me select my walls and make them a bit more back to 3 meters. And yeah, so that done. Now I can now just edit my two. Yeah, I'm going to now edit my slope by going to let's go to my elevation. And actually, let's select the right elevation that is going to make us see what we are doing. Let me go to the viewpoint, and I'm going to draw an elevation here. So yeah, so I'm going to come here, open this one, and we're going to open it up like this, and now we can edit the slopes. So I'm going to take this one. I'm just going to drag it a bit to somewhere there, just to have an overlap. And then I'm just going to come here to the top here, select this one, and then I'm just going to edit the slope using the first option like that. So then I'm just going to take the second option. I'm going to drag it a bit somewhere like there to make it have an overlap, and maybe take it down a bit. Yeah, and then I'm going to now select the top option here, use the first selection here, and I'm just going to edit it like this. So actually, let me just make it a bit longer like that. So and now we have these two types of roofs here. So let me show you in 3D. See, it becomes something like this. So I think that the thing with Skillion is going to be having a wall here that is going to be supported by a beam maybe. So let me show you like that. Yeah, so you can go back to a ground floor maybe if you want to extend this one to be a bit longer than the other one. I'm just going to extend it like this using the drag option like that. I'm going to extend it like that up to somewhere up here. So that's how you do it. Let me see the 3D. Yeah, and you can see it has gone on top in terms of creating a small overlap. So let me just now select my walls and make them a bit taller, be like 6,000. And then I'm just going to select my roofs, shift, select the two roofs, and I'm going to trim out to the wall like that. So it's going to form something like this, which is a skillion and lean-to. Yeah, something like this. So the thing that is going to remain is just putting a wall here, or any type of thing you're going to do with your design, maybe a clerestory window or something like that. So that's how you do a skillion and a lean-to, just two shed roofs that are in different pitch. So let me now delete them, shift, delete both of them. And then we're just going to do the exact opposite of the skillion, which is the butterfly roof. Let me go back and make my wall 3,000. So for my butterfly roof, I'm just going to do the same like for my skillion, but it's going to be opposite in terms of the slope. So I'm just going to select my roof tool. I'm going to start from the middle now because it's going to be the lowest point in my roof. So I'm just going to start here. Then I'm just going to look at where the roof is going to slope towards. So it's going to slope towards the middle. So I'm just going to draw the first leaf. And then I'm just going to do the same with this one. I'm just going to come here, start from the middle, and then look at towards where the slope is going to be for this leaf. It's going to be at the top, is going to be this other area. So I'm just going to now draw it. It's going to finish like that, and then draw it off this. Yeah, so let me just make sure it's okay. And then I can go to my 3D and I have something like this. I can now go to my elevation that I made and fix these slants. Yeah, so I'm just going to come here, select the top, and then I'm just going to edit my slope like that. Select my top here and then edit my slope the same way. I'm just going to trim it in this place here. I'm just going to make sure my walls are a bit tall, maybe 5 meters, and then I can now trim it from this window here. So let me go to 3D actually. and I'm going to select my wall here, and then select the roofs, and I'm going to trim them like that. So you can notice that when I trim it, it's going to have these holes here. So I'm just going to fix them by fixing the joint here. So I'm just going to select these two and go to the roof settings and change the joint from this one to this one. So I'm going to press OK, and it's going to form something seamless like this. So this is how you make a butterfly roof. And the next one is going to be our last type of roof, which is the gambrel roof. Let me delete this a bit actually and delete the other one. Let me Control Z and just select the roofs and delete them. Yeah, so the next one is going to be our gambrel roof. I'm going to reduce this one to 3 meters, back to 3 meters. And I'm just going to go to my ground floor. And for my gambrel roof, I like to use the shell tool for this because it's a bit more easier to maneuver. I'm going to use my shell tool, and then I'm just going to use the tunnel option for my shell tool. I'm just going to draw out my tunnel. I'm going to draw the face like it's actually, I think its face is actually up to here. And I just draw it out like this to draw something like this. So when I go to this elevation, I'll see something more like this type of roof, this barrel roof. Let me come here, go back, and let me see where it has drawn itself. I think it has drawn itself in the wrong way. Yeah, this is the tunnel of the barrel roof I was talking about. So with this one, I can now just edit it to make a gambrel roof by coming here to the top, maybe, yeah, and then just selecting the blue line and making it flat. Yeah, like that. So with it flat now, let me Control Z so that you can see where it has gone to. Drag it a bit up. Let me just drag it upwards. Control Z. Drag it upwards a bit. So somewhere there. So that done, I can now make this thing flat again. Select there and select the flat option. And then you see it starts as a straight line. So I can start at the middle and draw the first portion of my gambrel. Like come here and let me just zoom in so that you can select the blue part. And no, it's not selecting at all. But let me just make sure it's okay. Let me just drag it upwards like this to have it in this one lane so that you can select the middle part. Yeah, let me select it again. Yeah, and draw the first line of my gambrel like that. And then I can just now break it up like this. Yes, I'm just drawing it hypothetically. I'm not doing any measurements, so that you can just have an illusion of a gambrel roof. So you can see something like that. Then I can just make my walls a bit taller, maybe 6 meters. Like that. Then I can go back to my 3D and select the roof and my wall, and then I can just trim them. Actually cancel, then just trim them like that. So you can see it's going to trim the gambrel and form a gambrel roof. So that's how you do all the walls in Archicad, and I hope you have learned how you can approach them and use them in achieving other types of walls. So, for example, if you have a floor plan that runs, so for example, if you have a plan that is running, let me just delete the gambrel first. So those are the types of roofs that I've looked at, the most common ones. So I'm going to just show you one last thing in our plan here. So for example, when we want to draw this type of intersecting and overlaid hip and valley roofs, it will need a plan that is more not like square like the old rectangular. It's just a plan that is moving around or snaking around. So let me just delete these walls and these lines and just show you. So the plan maybe can go like this, something like this, yes, something like this. Let me just show you well so that it becomes well seen. Let me do it well. Yeah, so it might go something like this, or something like this, something like this, or something like this. Yeah, so if you have something like this in your plan, you can actually just draw out your roof and Archicad will generate it itself. So, for example, if I go to my roof here and I pick this first option now, and it makes sure it's in heaped. I can now just draw out my roof using the path of my plan, and Archicad will just generate it, and it does not need any technical thing or any complex stuff. So if I just finish, I think I've finished it. I don't know why it's not. Give me backspace, space, and then we finish. Backspace again, and let me just finish it off like that. And you can see it will generate something like this. So if I come back to my 3D and I hit my gamble, I'll have something like this. And Archicad has just generated itself. So if I reduce the angle and make it something more pleasing, maybe 30, it's going to, let me Control Z and make it 30. I mean, I don't not what I've done that. Let me 30. And you can see it just forms itself like this. So for these other types of roof here, this hip and valley and intersecting over hip, overlaid hip, it's just a matter of just drawing out your roof in the plan. So yeah, so thanks for watching for this video, and hope you've learned about roofs in Archicad, and please stay subscribed, and if you've learned something, please hit the like button and you can continue learning more. So these other roofs, we can just explore them by yourself because they're just mostly repetitions or maybe combinations of different kind of roofs. So thanks for watching.